Hey, g'day everybody, it's Matt here from Matt Did you enjoy that epic start? Probably a little bit too epic. I can only really keep up that kind of epic kind of behavior for about 10 seconds. So the rest of the video is me wood carving. So what I'm doing here is I am going to cut this out on the bandsaw, and I've drawn in sort of like a rough outline of the Viking, and I'm just sort of like transferring the main points over onto the other side. Now you don't have to use a bandsaw to sort of like block this out. You could use a cut saw flame burr, you could use that, but I find the bandsaw one of the most used tools in my workshop. It's just sort of like cuts down on a lot of time and getting rid of bulk material. You'll find actually a lot of whittlers use these bandsaws as well as power carvers. They are semi-dangerous. So what you can sort of see what I've done there is I've cut out one plane. Now I tape it together, so then I'll cut out the other plane, so we'll have almost a three-dimensional sort of blocked out carving there. And you always got to keep your hands well clear. I'm always using that push stick there, especially when it comes up to the blade getting quite close to the end. So there you go, there is the 3D kind of blocked out part there. And so we kind of just have to kind of round off the corners now. I draw the face back in, just to give myself kind of like an idea of where everything goes. And I'm just sort of like blocking out now with the cut saw flame burr. And I love this tool. This burr. It is the cut saw taper burr. And just sort of deciding on the end of the nose there, that's kind of one of those crucial things. You make it too short, it's kind of pretty hard to recover from that. Here's another one of my favourite burrs, is the cut saw sphere fine burr. It's just really nice for sort of like taking back parts slowly, and it's got a kind of a nice flow to it. And this is a Dremel cutter burr, and this is really nice just for putting in really sharp lines. And it does take away a lot of material, but I tend not to use it a lot for taking out bulk material. And the reason for that is because they blunt quite easily, although these ones aren't blunting as easily as previous ones. And so you just want to kind of use them for essential kind of things like these sharp lines. I'm putting in the cheek there, as you can see, and it sort of like really defines the face when you put in that cheek line. And you might kind of adjust that as you go along. I just kind of like work things out slowly and methodically, sort of like putting in lines there on the mustache. What I found though is the mustache was sticking too far out, because it needs to go back further. So I actually took it back, but not on video, and then sort of like I recarved it further back, maybe about 3 or 4 millimeters back. And so I'm putting in sort of like drawing the rest of the body in now. That is the shield, and the shield I'm going to make round and sort of not flat on the front, but sort of like a curve, just because I don't have heaps of material there to use. And I'll go and I'll just put sort of like outlines around things just to make sure everything's kind of working out. And we're sort of like, this is the burr you want to use for bulk material kind of getting rid of. This is the cut saw flame burr, really good for that. So you can sort of see there I have taken the mustache kind of back. So now I'm re-putting in the beard, the mustache hairs. And you find with these cutter burrs, they can leave sort of like a rough finish sometimes. Depends on what way you go on the wood. So I'd always go back in with a diamond burr and make those lines. You could actually, this wood is kind of semi-soft, you could go in with the diamond burr to start with. Now everyone's favourite part, putting in the mouth. You get this wrong, they kind of look a bit goofy. I'm kind of going almost straight across. That kind of is quite a neutral kind of mouth. If you kind of make it round, it kind of looks a little bit, I guess, more comical. You can sort of see there I'm putting in the beard hairs with a diamond burr, and I've used this burr before and it's really good, but like I did get those new burrs, and the great thing about those new burrs is you kind of, it's like using a chisel. So because they're like an inverted cone, they're like a V chisel, so you only really need to do one pass and it essentially puts in that V. We'll just get it focused there so you can sort of see it going around there. So yeah, it's really nice. So just putting it in, and that's that done. So always remember to sort of like orientate your carving to sort of like I've turned it upside down there. Orientate it to where it's more comfortable. And I'm going to use that inverted cone burr for the eyes. Now I'm going to do a really basic eye. So this is quite a nice eye to do. See, it's sort of like under the helmet anyway, so you can't see like real definition in it. So I'm going to sort of like just make it into a diamond and flatten it out a little bit at the top so that you can sort of see that it's pretty blocky, the whole kind of thing, which is quite a nice style. So, and you can use that flat kind of round diamond burr for sort of really nice deep cuts. Oh, now I'm putting so that cut because that's where the leather flappers coming out from the helmet. And I'm using that inverted cone burr because the top of it has actually got a round hollow in it. So I'm trying to, like, using it like an eye cutter. It looks pretty cool. I might do it a little bit deeper. So that's kind of like the finished product, which looks, I think, pretty cool for a really quick eye. And I got kind of carried away with that thing, so I thought I'd put a pattern in around the sort of leather flap that goes out. I guess these would be like studs in the leather. And here you go, this is the cheating way to carve. This is using the finger sander. It's really dusty though, I tell you. It just sends dust everywhere. But it was quite quick. It's because these, I haven't really done, this is probably the biggest kind of carving that I've actually done in a long time. I'm quite enjoying this. And it's not even really that big, but mine are usually about like half this size. So I'm just putting in sort of like some more details. Putting in, you get a bit carried away when you start carving, eh? It's sort of like you start thinking, oh, this won't take long, and then you start putting in details and things start like taking longer and longer. But that's okay because like it's really enjoyable, you know, you sort of like start losing track of time. Just finding up those lines. You kind of want to sort of like carve back the part in the helmet, so those kind of ridges stick out as kind of like bands that we put onto the helmet afterwards. And what we're going to do here is we're going to put that sort of like staff and make it into some kind of axe. But I'm going to actually sort of like hollow out the hand. I should have thought about this a little bit more to start with because the hand sits quite far back and it's quite narrow. So it's going to be a bit of a tight fit, but you always kind of make things work. You sort of like work around problems. That's a beauty of carving, which I really love, is this idea of sort of, it's just problem solving in the end, you know. So I went in with a drill bit and joined up the holes, and you can sort of see I've put the staff in, but it's sort of like getting blocked onto the sort of clothing. So now I'm going to sort of like cut into the clothing and sort of like try and make it go down into that part. but then I realized, oh well, it's blocking on the chest as well, so I will cut a little bit out of the chest. Sort of like I'll get it so it fits in there, and then I'll adjust things so it doesn't look so kind of like I've made holes in his chest just to put the staff there. Pretty happy with that. And I'm going to make the axe head out of copper. This looks extremely rough. I hardly ever use metal, but I managed to make it work somehow. I'm just going to put a little pattern in there. This took quite a while. There's got to be an easy way to do this, but I'm not going to show you the way that I did it because you might think that's the only way to do it. So, and then I give the man a little sand. I always do this just to take off some of the rough edges. But because I've used kind of like diamond burrs throughout, it's not that rough. And we're putting on a blue wood dye, and we will put it on, let it dry, and then sand it off so it sort of like looks roughed up. And I'm also going to now put on, this is a wood dye, and this is antique pine, I believe, because I didn't want this one to go too dark. And this is the wax that I'm putting on. You can sort of see there, I try and work it into the sort of like the patterns that I carved. And so this sort of like really makes things stand out. And I really like this wax because it kind of like comes up, if you polish it for a bit, it comes up with a kind of a nice sort of like satiny shine to it.